So I thought it might be helpful to look at the ways in which I might explore these ACPs throughout my fictional enrichment, creating art. So the first one, and these are not in any order, but the first one on the screen is intellectual playfulness, and that's described as the ability to recognize rules and bend them to create valid but new forms. I think the first thing here is not to get caught up on the word rules. You could replace the word rules with conventions, parameters, or features, common features. And so within my enrichment, I would look at each of these artists and I might look at the features of Picasso portraits. So a cubic portrait, and I'd look at he used these materials and he used to draw from two different angles. And I would look at the features and I would allow the students to deliberately practice those until they became proficient. But once they became proficient at mimicking those features, then I would encourage them to try being intellectually playful and apply intellectual playfulness. So why don't you look at those features and modify one of them? Think, what if I used a different material? How would that work? And I would get them to try it lots of different ways, modifying one feature here and then trying modifying a different feature and then a different feature, and then looking back and reflecting. Well, do you prefer it when you do all of the features as directed, or did you prefer one of the outcomes where you modified a feature or you modified more than one? And I'd explain that that was intellectual playfulness and that it can lead to exciting outcomes. So next is flexible thinking, and we definitely have preconceptions about what this means. So it's important that we come back to the language and the description. And here it's described as the ability to abandon one idea for a superior one or generate multiple solutions. So in context of my enrichment, what might that look like? Well, at a very basic level, I would encourage them to stop every now and then and look at their art. You've made lots of marks on the page. Do any of those need changing? Okay, do you want to go back, rub any out, or have another go? Maybe you think there's a better way of creating the image you're trying to create. Maybe some of those aren't quite right and can be improved. But what I also might do is I might look at a piece of work by Holbein called The Ambassadors, where they have lots of things there that represent their interests and their hobbies. And I might get them to plan the things that they would have in the middle. But I would go round to each of the students and think, well, let's try flexible thinking. This is your plan. How might you do that differently to showcase this side of yourself? And I'd encourage them to change some of their ideas to try and identify something that would be more meaningful. And I'd explain to them that that was flexible thinking. And so the next one is fluent thinking, the ability to generate lots of ideas. And so I'd probably build this one up throughout a sequence of enrichments. And probably to scaffold that, I would use thinking routines like see, think, wonder, where we'd look at a piece of art and they would get used to looking, observing and describing, then thinking, and then wondering about the piece of art. But really, seeing, observing and describing and thinking. And then once they'd done that a few times, I'd perhaps take that thinking routine away for one of the sessions and see how fluently they could generate lots and lots of ideas. So you might look at a piece of artwork and you might say, what do you think the artist is trying to tell you about this person? What things can you see in there that give you clues? And if you keep asking similar questions like that with a thinking routine over several sessions, when we remove that thinking routine, they should be able to generate those ideas fairly fluently. So the next one is originality, and that's the ability to conceive something entirely new. And so this is difficult for students, and often students have need a bit of structure in order to have the courage to think completely outside the box. And so what I might do there is give them a selection of lots of different materials, and I might say, give them an objective. So I might say, I want you to create a piece of work that is inspired by somebody you love, that represents somebody you love. So I might give them some guidance. Think about color, think about texture, think about the way that you compose the picture on the paper, and be creative, be bold. I want you to be original. And I want. So the last one is evolutionary and revolutionary thinking. It's harder to say, but it's probably easier than being entirely original. So the description is the ability to create new ideas through building on existing ideas or diverting from them. So here, I think I would wait till the last session. And then once we built up a portfolio where we'd looked at lots of different artists and the way that they did self-portraits, I would encourage them to look back and reflect on that. And I'd say, right, today you're going to do your own self-portrait. And I want you to look back at all of the other self-portraits you've done inspired by different artists. And I want you to think about the features that you want to use in your own self-portrait. Okay, so they should be influenced by all of the experiences they've had throughout the sessions. Okay, but also I want to make a conscious decision about which bits you're not going to use, what features you don't think worked. Maybe you're going to leave out any influence from Picasso altogether because they all looked a bit sad, and you wanted a happier, more upbeat feel to yours. So I'd encourage them to look through a portfolio of experiences and reflect on how they're going to be inspired and influenced by those, and where they're going to divert, where they're going to do things differently. And that needs to be a conscious decision. And I'll explain what we're doing is it's evolutionary and revolutionary thinking.